welcome to another video. Today I would like to talk about the goals that I have set for myself for 2024. I am filming this in February, so I've already had a month or so to try and fulfill or accomplish some of these goals, and I have, but I'll talk about that at the end of the year. But yeah, I came up with 25 goals because I was thinking of, rather than trying to hit every single one, I would like to try and make this into a sort of bingo thing. So if everything goes well, then there should be a bingo card here next to me, but it should be empty also because I still need to tell you all of the goals. So yeah, let's start. So goal number 1 is to get strong. I have been struggling with this so much over the past, 4 or 5 years. I am physically very weak. And I really want to get stronger. A couple of years back, I had a really bad injury from knitting too much. My body was just not equipped to handle that amount of strain, and it took me so long to fix that. And I want to have a more preventative approach now. Well, I have been trying that already for the past 9 months or so, but this year I really want to try my best to get just strong, especially my shoulders, my arms. I think that not only would it benefit me when it comes to knitting, but I think also in life general. So that is one thing I would like to do. I think I should set maybe a bit more of a concrete goal. I would like to be able to do 50 push-ups at the end of the year in sets. So 25 times 2 sit-ups. Wait, no, push-ups, yes. Push-ups. So that's goal number 1. I have, for the rest of these, I believe, I've categorized them. So we're moving on to knitting for people. So generally, I just knit for myself. I think the main reason is that for the longest time, I didn't really feel confident enough to knit something for anyone else aside from, a scarf that I once or twice knit for my sister. But since last year, I've become really confident when it comes to knitting, especially socks. And so I would like to knit more for people. So as goal number 2, I have that I would like to knit 3 sweaters for my boyfriend. I have actually already promised him to do that. So yeah, we have also already picked out all of the patterns, and I'm currently working on the first sweater. So I think I'm well on my way to achieving this goal. Then goal number 3 is knit Christmas presents before December. So this was a huge problem for me last Christmas. That was the first time that I actually started gift knitting. I had decided to knit 2 socks for our mothers, and I ended up finishing 1 sock for each person. I just didn't really plan it out that well, and it was just very stressful. I have also noticed with other people that gift knitting can be very stressful if you do it very close to the deadline. And generally for me, Christmas is a time where I would like to just chill and not do all that much. And so having these projects that I need to finish by a deadline, I just think that's not a good idea. So that's why I want to already start knitting for Christmas now and just slowly take my time finishing these gifts so that once the time comes in December, I can take off. I don't have to do anything, and then I can just gift what I want without the stress. So yeah, that's everything for knitting for people. Then moving on to the vintage section, I have been interested in vintage clothing for a very long time at this point. And when I was in Japan last year, I acquired a couple of vintage Japanese knitting books because they were selling them for so cheap. I think about like €2, €3, and they ranged from the 1940s up until I think the 1990s. And I got them with the goal of trying to knit some of these patterns. But as I was looking into them more and more, I started to feel a bit intimidated and I wasn't really sure how to proceed. But then I came up with this idea quite recently, and that was to actually first start off with trying to knit English vintage patterns. There's a huge difference between modern knitting patterns and vintage ones, and I thought that if I first bridge the gap between that and then go from vintage in one language to vintage in a language that I'm less proficient in, that would be an easier step than from modern English to vintage Japanese. And I think it's actually working. I have learned a lot since trying to knit vintage English patterns. But yeah, having said that, it is a goal for me this year to knit an English vintage pattern, and I actually have already completed that. So, yeah, there's that. And also, the second goal, or basically the fifth goal, is to knit a vintage Japanese pattern. And that is something that I have not yet done, and I'm hoping to do that somewhere towards the end of the year because I would like to knit a bit more of these vintage English ones and get better at understanding construction of knitwear pieces. So yeah, that is definitely a goal that I would like to reach towards the end of the year. Then we're moving on to the next section, which is different languages. So if you don't really know much about me, I speak English and Dutch, and I have an intermediate level of Japanese, a fairly good understanding of German and Swedish. And a couple of weeks ago, I figured that it's actually not that hard for me to read patterns in different languages, specifically languages that are Germanic. Yeah, yeah. So I thought it would be fun to challenge myself and try and knit a pattern in a couple of different languages. So I have Norwegian as goal 6, Danish as goal 7, 8, Swedish as goal 8, and Dutch as goal 9. So I guess another reason as to why I would like to do this is because I found out quite recently that there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of really beautiful patterns that are for free online but are not available in English but are available in these languages. So I would like to give that a try. I think it would also be fun to knit these patterns and kind of like show what's out there to people who may not be very familiar with these languages. One thing specifically that I'm really interested in is actually getting my hands on the Augustus knitting pattern book. I'm not too sure what the name of it is, but yeah, the designer Augustins, she's a Danish knitwear designer, and I've knit one of her pieces, Augustins number 1, and I really enjoyed the experience. I really like her style. It's very romantic. I believe she studied architecture, so her knitwear designs are also inspired by that, and I just think it's absolutely lovely. And her book has, I think, 2 or 3 dress patterns that I would really like to give a go. So that's something that I would like to try out. Yes, so I'm excited about that. If you've watched my podcast, you already know that I have achieved one of these goals already. But yes, moving on to the next goal, this pertains to independent knitters. So, having a knitting podcast, one of I have a knitting podcast for a number of reasons. So one of these reasons is that there are not too many people around me who knit. I really like talking about what I'm doing. It especially helps me with getting kind of like things straight. I get a lot of help from people who watch my podcast, who give their advice, share experiences, and also I really enjoy adding value to a community, adding some knowledge, something different. And so this reason kind of informs my choosing of which patterns that I would like to knit. And so I thought it would be fun to knit patterns from 5 independent European knitters. And a criteria that comes with that is that the pattern should not have more than 10 or less. The pattern should have 10 or less projects on Ravelry. I have spent, I think, the first 2 weeks of January just scavenging Ravelry, looking for patterns that aren't that popular, and I have found a bunch. So I'm hoping to knit at least 5, but also it's just only me. So I don't know if I'm gonna meet this goal, but I am excited to try. And now I have a couple of project based goals. So these are just particular articles of clothing, accessories, things like that that I would like to try and knit. First off, I want to finish my first pair of mittens. Last year, I embarked on this journey to knit a pair of mittens, and the journey was kind of miserable. I have frogged, I think, maybe 7 or 8 gloves at this point, and oh no, mittens. I frogged about 8 or 7 mittens at this point. Spoiler, I've actually completed this one goal. I finished, I think, about 2 weeks with my first successful pair of mittens. But yeah, I just really struggled with this one, and I wanted to achieve it, and I did. But one that I haven't yet achieved is goal number 12, and that is knit a pair of gloves, which arguably is a bit harder because you have to think more about the anatomy of your fingers here. I have been watching a couple of videos. I actually bought a book recently about gloves, mittens, like any like hand wear knitted articles. So I think this is going to be a successful goal, or a goal that I'll be able to achieve. Next up is goal number 13, and that is to knit a cardigan. I have yet to knit a cardigan, and I realized that a couple of weeks ago, and so that's why it's here on my list. Then number 14 is knit a scarf. It's been a very, why did I actually put this on? Yeah, so I actually have knit a scarf last year, but this year I actually bought a book that is just filled with these beautiful scarf designs. It's a Japanese one. And so in my mind, what I meant with knitting a scarf is those like really long ones that are like, I don't know, like a half circle and very intricate. So that is something that I would like to do, because I wouldn't say that I've been scared to knit those, but it just seems like a huge daunting task, and I want to challenge myself by knitting one of these this year. I don't have a particular pattern in mind, but like I said, I have the book and I think another pattern that I was really excited about. So that's definitely going to work out. Well, I shouldn't say definitely, but if I really set my mind to it, I'll be able to do it. And then goal number 15 is knit 2 color work socks. So last year I started on my sock journey, and I think altogether I knit about 10, 11, 12 pairs of socks, something like that. But most of them have just been plain self-striping socks. I mostly focused on trying different types of constructions, so cuff to toe, toe to cuff, French heel, Dutch heel, placing the gusset in a different position, different heel flaps, German short row heel. So this year I want to branch a bit more out and try some color work socks. I did get the book of Charlotte Stone from Stone Knits. I think it's called something like 25 Colorful Socks. And I have 2 socks that I am interested in knitting. Not that I'm tying myself to these 2 socks, but one is the Swan Lake sock that has swans on the cuff, and then the other is, I think, like a chicken and egg sock, which has chickens on the cuff, and then the toe is like a baked egg, something like that. So that's goal number 15. Goal number 16 is knit a sock from 52 weeks of socks. So this is a major embarrassment for me. Last year, when the 52 Weeks of Socks book, volume 2, came out, I bought the book digitally and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try and do this challenge and knit 1 sock a week. This was early in my sock journey and I had no idea what really went into knitting. Well, not knitting just regular socks, but I think knitting very intricate lace ones and different constructions and different yarn weights, just a multitude of different socks. I didn't know what went into that. And I kind of tried, I think, a couple of times to knit some socks out of that book, but it didn't work out. And so I kind of like pushed it aside. But, you know, I don't just want to buy a book and not use it. So I set the goal to knit a sock from 52 Weeks of Socks, volume 2. And then I have 2 sweaters still that I would like to try. And these are really tough projects in my opinion. So the first one is the Lillehammer 1994 sweater. So how did I come about this? Yes, I was searching for free patterns, and then there was this, I believe, Norwegian yarn company. I thought they were known as Dale, but their website is something like House of Yarn. In any case, they have this really intricate colorwork sweater that was designed for the 1994 Winter Olympics that was in Lillehammer in Norway. And I just think it's so beautiful. I think it's so cool. I think it would be so awesome to make my own version of that sweater, but oh my gosh, it looks like it's so much effort. But I think those types of projects are really exciting, like the huge challenge ones. So I would like to try out this one. And then I have another project which is also very colorwork heavy, and that's from one of the Japanese books that I recently bought. It's from this book. This is called Matatabi Nitto, or Matatabi Knit, and it's by Mariko Mikuni, who is a very famous Japanese knitwear designer. I think this came out around the end of November, and I mean, she has been around for a hot minute. And so what I've noticed is that she really likes challenging herself and creating very unique designs. And one of these is this one right here. This is the Anatolian pattern sweater. I think that the Japanese name is Anatolia Gara no Seta. So yeah, just the Anatolian pattern sweater. So I did not know what Anatolia was, but apparently it's an area in West Asia that for the most part encompasses Turkey. And it seems to, well, the sweater seems to be inspired by the clothing that was worn there or still gets worn there. I believe it's the traditional clothing. And yeah, it's just so much color work, and it just, I don't know, it just looked really cool. It looked really intricate. I think one of the things that really is going to be a challenge for myself is trying to find a color scheme that works for me. This is, well, I guess this is kind of like a separate goal, has been a separate goal for me this year, is to try and when I see a pattern, try and think of another color selection. Like, I mean, sometimes, you see a pattern and you're like, whoa, I want this pattern in this exact color. But I also want to try to get myself out of my comfort zone and learn more about what color combinations would work in a sweater or just any type of knitted item. And so I think this would be a perfect project to practice that with and also improve my color work with. Recently, I have been doing a lot of color work and I've really been enjoying it. Then we move on to the next section, which is IRL. So I usually just sit indoors and knit in front of my desk or at the dinner table, but I also want to do more things outside. And so for goal number 19, I have go to a yarn festival. So recently I found out that there was a yarn festival in the Netherlands here in Houten. I think that's somewhere in Zwolle, like the east of the Netherlands. I'm not too sure, but I don't know. I never really thought of going, but I think actually it would be a fun experience to do so. And there are so many yarn festivals all across mainland Europe, and I think it would be fun to maybe go to a European country that I haven't been to before. So I am still trying to think of which one I would like to go to, but I definitely want to go to at least one yarn festival. And then for goal number 20, I have go thrifting IRL for patterns. So I don't know how exactly, well, I don't know how successful that would be here in the Netherlands. I have tried looking for vintage Dutch patterns on Marktplaats online, but I haven't had a lot of luck. They've been kind of expensive on there, and I'm pretty sure that if I just find the right secondhand store or charity shop here in the Netherlands, I might be able to find something that's really interesting. So that is something that I would like to do, try and go to a couple of thrift stores and see if I can find any. Yeah. Okay. So that's everything for IRL, and then we're getting to the second to last category, and that is design. So this year I really want to try and design things, mostly for the reason of getting better at construction, understanding construction, just becoming a better knitter, learning. That's something that's huge for me. Yeah, so I actually started this journey in November, I believe. I tried to knit my own, I don't know, like button down vest or something. And I've learned a lot from that experience alone. It's been really fun. So I decided to create two goals for this. So goal number 21 is design two knitwear items. So I think for myself, well, I already have one design that I'm like really, really excited about. Well, I think I already have two designs that I'm gonna try and knit. One is kind of like again a polo sweater thing with some texture on some places, and then the other one is a jacket. I have been really into jackets, knitted jackets or coats, the past week actually, and I came up with a fun design inspired by a vintage pattern. So I would love to give that one a go. And then for goal number 22, I have design one crochet item. So, okay, these were my 2024 knitting goals, and crochet is not really knitting, but I have found crochet to be very valuable to my knitting. I started out with crochet back in, I think, May. Yeah, I think May last year. I've dabbled here and there. I haven't done all that much, but I found that just learning the basics of single crochet, half double crochet, things like that have made a lot of things very easy for me with knitting, and it has added kind of like to my creativity of like what are things that I could create combining knitting and crochet. So I would like to challenge myself and design one crochet item. Yeah, so that's everything for design. Then my last goal or section category is YouTube, because I make videos on YouTube. And I wanted to, set goals for that. So, I have three goals. Goal number 23 is be consistent on YouTube. When I started off this knitting challenge, when I started off this knitting channel, why can't I say it? When I started off this knitting channel, I was in Japan studying, really busy with things. It was tons and tons of chaos. And what happened was I was very inconsistent. So I would be filming on a regular basis, but there was no balance when it came to knitting. When it came to filming my podcast episodes and actually editing them and uploading them in a timely fashion. So there would be these huge spurts of videos and then nothing for a couple of months and then huge spurts. And now I want to be a bit more consistent. And so I want to at least make 2 videos per month and just be better at scheduling things. Yes, so goal number 24 is doing 3 knitting book review videos. So I really like knitting, obviously, and I like to obtain books concerning knitting where I can learn more techniques, learn information. And the thing is that there's not always a lot of information about knitwear books online, and sometimes when I go on YouTube and I find some reviews, they're not very in depth. And so I want to try and, I guess, provide that service to other people and film 3 book review videos. One particular reason why I think this is going to be a really good goal is that it's going to motivate me to also thoroughly read books, knitwear books. So I won't just be buying them and have them just in my bookcase for years on end. So I'm very happy with trying to achieve that goal. And then the last goal is to make 2 video tutorials. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Last year I tried to design a dicky and I wanted to do a tutorial on it, and I used yarn that I had bought specifically for a sweater that I was working on. And so it got to a point where I was like, oh, I actually need this yarn now for this sweater. So I had to unravel it, and I never actually came back to that project. Hopefully in the future I will, but I noticed that I was also not skilled enough for that particular project. But what I want to say with with that is that making video tutorials is still something that is very much so on my mind, and I'm actually working on one right now. And yeah, it's going quite well in terms of preparation. I'm re well, yeah. So I am actually working on a bonnet tutorial, and the pattern that I'm like writing or redesigning is a 60s pattern. And I've knitted up twice now, and I'm gonna try and knit up my third one next week, and then I'm gonna try and film the tutorial afterwards if I'm happy with the final end result of the design. So that's hopefully going to be my first video tutorial. I don't know what I'm going to do for the second one, but we'll see. So that is basically everything. Yep, that is everything. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in another video.